right, it's spinning. All right. Hey, folks, here we are. We had a lot of interest in this topic. We're ready to rock and roll. This is AI, artificial intelligence for content creation. And we have a really great panel. So we got Laura Hill here. We got Marie Jones. And then Tristan, how do you pronounce the last name again, brother?
Rummel.
Tristan Rummel with us. So let's take a minute to introduce each person. So Laura, you first.
Hi, I'm Laura Hill. I'm a marketing consultant, and I deal with a lot of content marketing strategy. And I've been doing this for, more than 15 years now. So work with a lot of clients in startups, training industry, and a lot of people who have personal branding as a key part of their marketing strategy. So happy to be here and chat about AI with you guys.
Excellent. Tristan, you're next.
Cool. My background, I've done a little bit of everything. I've grown apparel businesses, so direct to consumer. I've sold software. I've sold government contracts. Really got pulled into a lot of heavy B2B stuff during COVID. So I was doing a lot of that type of work. And during that process and function, I came across that content was super important to get in front of people. Started developing a tool. And then when ChatGPT came out, I was able to integrate it and start integrating it as part of my business. So that's why I'm on the call.
Oh, we look forward to hearing that. Marie.
Hi, I'm Marie Jones. I'm a librarian at Brevard College, and I also teach business. I have recently published a book called To Be the Best by Any Measure, Creating and Sustaining High Performance Organizations. That's a lot of words. And I've been using the AI in both the classroom and on campus and in my own writing. So it's been an interesting thing to play with.
And don't sell yourself short. Your PhD in library sciences is like a perfect match for this. I mean, you got the skills that ties into this so wonderfully. So I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts and comments and the things that you're doing. I'm David Mantica, VP GM of SoftEd. I'm a kind of presenter type. And so I use the tool a lot for supporting the presentations and writing up the content to get people excited about my presentation. So we're going to jump into the meat and potatoes of this. And remember, group, comments, questions, type them in. We are going to interrupt ourselves. We'll throw your questions out. We'll throw your comments out. We look forward to hearing from you. Laura, start with you. Use cases, examples, hit it.
Yes, we're going to go quick too, because we only have till about 12:30. But if anyone's interested in jumping in afterwards to an audio room, you can find my profile link and go there afterwards, and we'll do some Q&A there. But let's jump right in. I've got some slides to show you guys, some use cases for AI content creation. And I want to say before I flip through these slides, all of the art on this slide deck I created in Midjourney or Lensa AI or some other AI tool. So, and I am not a designer, I'm a marketer, but I know usually when I'm looking for specific things for marketing reasons, I want a certain look, I want a certain whatever it is, background. I know what I need strategically. And so I've been experimenting with AI for blogging and for creating images to supplement whatever it is I might need to do in marketing. So a few use cases in marketing. Of course, ChatGPT can do hundreds of different things. It can code a website. It can troubleshoot your tracking code if you're running ads or you're having other sources of traffic coming in and you're trying to track your website and figure out what are your sources. You can put tracking code there. It can help troubleshoot it if you have a problem. It can write your email funnels. It can, do all kinds of things on the writing side. ChatGPT is, I'll talk more about writing in terms of, different use cases within writing. Like it can take long content and summarize it to make it more concise. If you have people on your team that are good subject matter experts, but maybe aren't good at being concise or aren't good at writing copy, you can tell it, I want this certain tone, I want this certain audience, I want, these are our branding themes of the types of emotions or the types of, other parameters that you want to put into that. And Tristan will talk more about that later, I'm sure. But things like writing FAQs for SEO purposes, and there's a ton of FAQs for any business that should be included on your website for SEO purposes and drive that search traffic. And ChatGPT is great at coming up with all the different versions that your writers may not have thought of the different FAQs for your business, which is great, especially for startups if you're just getting out there, you might not even know what your FAQs are because you might not have customers yet. So I'll talk more about startups in a little bit. But
I love the FAQ concept, by the way. That's really interesting. How do you make it? How do you have to talk to it to do that? Do you have to give it some parameters before it really pops out?
Well, you can start wherever you want to start. Just say, give me some FAQs for X product, or, in a copywriting style, give me FAQs for this product, this intended customer.
So you actually have to add some of that, like, hey, the copywriting style, or in the style of a salesperson, you do things like that?
Yeah, of course. And you can also say, here's a few that we have already. Maybe you have some from customers to get it started. Elaborate on that and think of 10 more. And
look at Jeff has this concept. He likes the entertaining, inquisitive style. That's the style he uses for his content. Keep going.
Well, that's great. Yeah. And I just want to offer some cautions when working with ChatGPT or any AI tool, it could be Jasper for writing, is that you want to make sure that you're inserting your point of view, especially if you're blogging or doing any kind of thought leadership content, because ChatGPT obviously doesn't have lived human experience to draw on. I mean, you can give it examples of your lived human experience and say, I had this story, that happened to me, and I want you to incorporate that into this educational blog on this topic. And Tristan's doing some amazing things on how to really give it the voice of a specific person and really help that person write for their personal brand. But just be cautious not to just use it. Don't just copy paste and throw it up on a blog, because the search engines know when it's AI generated. There's markers in there. Also, ChatGPT isn't always accurate. And even if you ask it to cite its sources, it makes them up. Like you'll see that if you want, like, well, where are your sources? And then it'll make up some link to like MIT, and you click on it and it's like nothing. So that's something to definitely not copy and paste fake sources. Don't do that.
That is hilarious. It's funny. I had it sourcing different articles when I was doing it. It was very interesting. How it pulls some of that information out. And I want to remind people for this presentation, every one of these images she's showing was created using an AI tool.
That's right. And I want to emphasize that I am a newbie. I'm not a designer. I know just enough Photoshop to get me by and the things that I do. But, if you're a startup and you don't have a lot of money to spend on an expensive product photo shoot, maybe you don't even have your product yet. Maybe it's a prototype that you're trying to depict in a visual format. Check out Midjourney, check out some of the prompts, and it's amazing what you can come up with once you start down that process of learning the prompts and being very specific of what it is that you're trying to depict.
And we're going to give you a whole sheet of tools that you just have to chat in your email address for us, and we give you a whole list of the tools that are out there and available to you.
Yeah.
All right, Laura, keep rocking.
Yeah, last couple points. I have a couple more slides here to show you guys. This is an example of a first attempt of an image that I wanted to create to promote a blog I was doing. And I wanted to depict collaboration in a corporate setting around a conference table. And I wasn't super specific other than saying that. And it gives me back this picture with, as you can see, mostly male-looking, fair-skinned humans in this picture. And I had to say, I want diversity. I want women in the room. I want, exactly what I want. And so that's really cool with AI, is that you can infuse exactly what you want to see in the world. And you might not be able to find those stock photography. I've worked with a lot of clients that they want to depict a certain inclusive scene of their business, but they're not able to find the stock photography to depict that. And
Have you tried doing by style? Like, give me an 80s style or give me a 90s style. Do you think it could handle that?
Oh, definitely. There's all different types of artistic styles that you can put in there. And so
could you give it a what's his name again? The guy who does the Campbell soup thing? Andy Warhol. There you go.
Sometimes you can. Not all artists, but sometimes. You just have to play with it. And so I'll just click through my last few images. I mean, look at the photorealistic, on this. And I want to credit, there's a tool called Dream Prints that helped me understand the prompt to create this photorealistic look for this. So I want to credit that. And we're putting together a resource guide. If anyone's interested, just send us a message on LinkedIn and we'll send you the resource guide that lists a lot of these tools that we're working with and experimenting with. So there is a couple more just examples here.
That's so pretty. I love
Yeah,
the lemon thing is amazing.
Isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's all I got in terms
That's
of
crazy.
slides.
Well,
And
Kristen, any questions for Laura? Marie, any questions for Laura after hearing any of that stuff? No thoughts, comments?
Laura,
right.
have you tried DALL-E at all? DALL-E?
I did once or twice. I wasn't able to quickly get what I was trying to get out of it, so I moved on. A lot of the time there's like early problems, like you might notice like the 6-finger problem with hands. Like a lot of the AI is not really good with hands and
6 fingers.
Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of times it puts too many fingers on.
And so even though deep fakes can do like amazing faces and generate new things, like DALL-E is lousy at faces. Trying to get it to have a human in there that has a real face, I could not get it to do it. And so I want to play with some of those other tools you mentioned earlier, Laura. Thank you.
Yes, they're a
Hey,
little
Laura,
more
we have a
advanced.
question about copyright issue. Do you see that? Are there copyright issues with these generated photos?
Yeah, so as of right now, you can't copyright an AI generated image. So you can take it and do what you want with it as of this moment. That may change in the future. You know, the AI would like for you to credit it. So whenever I post it, I usually say I generated this with Midjourney or whatever tool I use.
Okay, so you cite the tool you use for the post.
That's right.
Do you think it is pulling actual real? I mean, is it pulling multiple images together? You think, or is it actually creating its own image?
It depends. Like you can give it source images and tell it, I would like you to use this as a source image. But if you don't do that, it's just trained to learn a lot of the different art styles and, photography styles.
All right. So, Marie, we're jumping to you now. Library Science PhD, the educator. Last time we talked about some issues in education and concerns. You're going to dig a little deeper into the use cases that you're using. And we may go beyond 30 minutes. So if you have questions on the, some of the ethics, some of the copyright issues as we're getting, we'll handle those towards the end. So hit us, Marie. What do you got?
So I have used Jasper for a while. That was one of our commenters mentioned it. And I actually was using it when it was called Jarvis. And so, I was using it primarily as a writing assistant to help outline. My biggest challenges, I think the biggest issue is that you can only pull out of it. What you get out of it is only as good as the content that's in it, right? So if I was trying to write something more up to date than the data file that we were working with, it wouldn't pull facts out that I needed that were more current. And so that's at least in the way I'm working on this, that's what I'm realizing. My favorite new tool is at elicit.org, and it's a research assistant that does a literature review. So it's a very librarian-like thing to do, right? But it's doing primarily scientific research because that's what it has access to on the open internet. Eventually, I want to see how this plays out for libraries. Like, what kind of questions are you going to ask to get information out of a proprietary database? Because that's part of the problem, is that the copyright does make a difference in terms of what the data set can get a hold of. I use Otter AI a lot. It goes to meetings for me when I don't go to meetings. That's or when
you getting anybody concerned about Otter at this point, or anybody asking you questions? What the heck you doing? What is this Otter thing?
I usually get questions. Sometimes my the hosts of a meeting won't let Otter in when I'm not. But I like having it and being able to. Then I can share the notes. I use it to take minutes when I need to. I either use that or Google Recorder. I have a Pixel, and so Google Recorder does basically the same thing that Otter AI does. It transcribes what's being said. It can tell how many people there are in a room, more or less. Sometimes I'm 2 people, according to it.
Interesting.
But that's it. So that when you have those notes, it's so easy to turn those into minutes without having you have the full transcript, but you can turn it into quick minutes.
Yeah.
So those are my big favorites.
Have you heard of Cat Sonic?
I have not. Chat.
Laura, Tristan, have you heard of Cat Sonic?
Ooh.
No.
I'd say we'll have to take a look at that one. Great share, Chris. I think it's Christina. Great share. Thank you for adding that to it. Real-time data would be pretty powerful. Let's go back to the classroom side. What are you seeing in the classroom side real quick? Any pushback, concerns? Are you starting to see students really embrace it? Where are things standing at this point?
Well, the students have embraced it a long time ago. The question is how we as faculty can help them use it well, help them learn how to use it well, just like we taught them how to search the internet, and how to help them how to use it to help them grow as learners, right?
Yeah.
So I've spoken to some K-12 teachers who are using it to help students brainstorm or to polish their writing. So they'll write something, throw it into whatever tool, and then see how it comes out, and they can compare and contrast, and they could see how it's improved, kind of like getting good feedback from a teacher.
Yeah, so it's almost like a tutor. They use it as a tutor system. And which one are they gravitating towards? Do you know, when you hear them chat, do you know which ones are gravitating
Everybody had been using ChatGPT everywhere because suddenly that was the thing. But even something like, we were using Canva in class the other day. One of my colleagues was using Canva with a class because you can use Canva to write.
Yeah. All right, so that's great. So we have a question here. So Laura, you talked a lot, and Tristan, we're going to get to you, man. Don't worry, we got lots of time. Should graphic designers be scared? So we talked about content marketers last time. I talked about BuzzFeed. I talked about how BuzzFeed fired all their content marketers and their stock doubled. What about graphic designers? Thoughts? Tristan, what are your thoughts on that article? Laura, start with you. Go ahead.
I would advise graphic designers to stay informed as to what AI is doing and the capabilities on Midjourney. And as long as you are up to speed on that, you can find a way to add value and use it, because these AI tools, they're designed for digital formats. So there's a lot of ways you can add value, especially if you're trying to print some of this art or enhance it and work with business owners or other whether it's physical products or other things. There's ways that you can work with the AI and bring it into your processes so that it saves you time. It makes you more cost efficient. I just see it as opportunities if you're able to embrace it and understand how it helps you make a more valuable service.
And then Tristan, your thoughts on that? That was great.
Yeah, I would agree with Laura on that as well. It's one of those things that if you're yourself an expert eye, you've been trained, you understand how graphic design works, like white space and all this, the AI can only get you so far. So you always stand out from the competition that's maybe just using it to completely automate everything. But that editing eye is always going to be important. It also lends itself to the same thing Laura was discussing with content. It's the same thing. Will it replace some content writers? Maybe some of them, but maybe they shouldn't have been doing that in the first place, right? The right ones, the right eye, they know what to look for. They know how to create the really compelling stuff. Just overcoming that blank slate, that blank starting point. It allows you to.
Yeah, and AI is not good right now with typography. So even these beautiful art images, we need designers to create text overlays, to know what good typography is and how to incorporate that with the art. There's a lot of ways that graphic designers will still be needed, but they need to stay up to speed so that they're not putting in more time than they need to put in on projects and making their services more expensive than they need to be.
And Marie, any thoughts on your side? Because we talked a little bit about this, and you're a big proponent of how they use it to grow, right? So go ahead.
So I think that for designers, it's using that eye. It's just like the content, writing the written word content. You use your skills as a good writer or your skills as a designer to grow. And also as you're learning, if you're new to the thing, looking at how the designs are created and analyzing them, I think is a way to grow it in your own way too. Why did this work? Ooh, I hadn't thought of doing that.
And we have a user talk about using it for their degree. And from my perspective, I look at it and say, I want critical thinking now. I want problem solving skills now. I want someone to be able to pull multiple pieces of information together quickly so that they can make complex decisions. And so I get excited about it. So I have no problem with someone writing a report about this, as long as they've interpreted the cause and effect and they put their own interpretations associated and spent more time on that than on just pulling the stupid data together.
Yeah. And that's one of the nice things about Elicit is that it's pulling the data from a bunch of places, building a mini lit review, and then you improve it along the way. But it helps find the material without having the right language for it. And we've been working on that for a while, getting real, human language searches to work. But this is even that next leap forward. So.
All right, Mr. Tristan, your turn.
All right.
Use cases. What are you up to? You talk about spreadsheets, the connecting spreadsheets in, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I'm more of a spreadsheet guy. So I was playing around with back in COVID, right at the beginning, I had a whole bunch of my friends. Hey, we can't go to any in-person events. We're all doing this networking. I'm like, well, let's figure out LinkedIn. So we start doing that. Then we start realizing that's a lot of outbound. How about generating inbound opportunities? So I'm like, well, we got to write content. So I started interviewing clients. And then I realized I started working on my clients with the same framework, the same pattern, the same insights I'm trying to pull from them over and over again. So back in 2020, I threw together a Google sheet that I ran with every client with little inputs, and I would spit out like a little framework. And I could do little drop downs and things like that. Fairly nerdy. But I just started running into a certain capacity when I still had to turn and write the content. Clients started running into issues too, because I would get them set up with it, but they're like, I still am staring at a blank screen. Or say it's like a sales rep is like, I'm just not the strongest sitting and writing. I'd rather be able to talk this out. It's like, all right, well, let's think of hopefully there's a solution. I know something like GPT-3, but I don't have access. I see Jarvis, but Jarvis isn't quite giving me what I'm looking for, right? Like I know what I want, and I'm not getting it from this, right? It's their own tool. So fast forward to, I think it was like November, December, I got connected with one of those extensions. There's a lot of these different Google Sheets extensions out now. The one I got connected with was Prompt Loop, and they're actually a Y Combinator company. And I sat down, like the founder reached out, was like, hey, we have this tool, we have this functionality integrating GPT-3 with spreadsheets. I'm like, this is perfect because this process and system I've been running, this allows me to actually make a lot more scalable and deliver better results for my clients too.
So what's inside that spreadsheet, Tristan? Yeah. What's inside that spreadsheet?
Spreadsheet is just going to be, it's the same thing. That same framework I have, I turn around, I create functions and say like, hey, I need you to write content this way. And so it spits out a piece of content. I'll take that. I'll maybe edit it up and say, hey, create it in this voice, create it in this voice, right?
Okay.
It spits it out. And I turn around, I keep training the AI. So the AI gets smarter and smarter as I'm just training it on how I talk and sound. It's essentially like creating your own personalized Jarvis.
So you're actually talking into it. You're actually, hey, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I think about this.
I feed it. So it gives me out a post. I'm like, that's not what I want. Let me take it. I'm going to edit it up. And I'm going to tell you that this is good content, right? Like this. And it picks it up. And the next time it gets a little smarter. So I keep training it. So if you have a piece of content that say gets a lot of eyeballs and engagement, I can just train my AI to do that. Now, the next level on this too is Lara touched on this as well. Oh, this would be fantastic. You bring your personal point of view. Well, the interview questions I had was an interview. I was asking personal questions and stories. I can also turn around to the AI and say, you talk about, because I work with a lot of salespeople. No, well, I'm super involved in my community. I say I do Little League baseball. And I realized when they were selling in person, they always use analogies around like Little League sports or coaching Little League baseball or playing baseball. Like perfect. I can train the AI for every once in a while to start integrating stories about coaching Little League baseball in the content. So I'm just going to.
How do you do that? You say, hey, add Little League stories?
Yeah, that's what you start doing.
Now, the stories
true?
Did it create goofy?
It's not going to be their story necessarily, but they get that piece of content. Now they just have to tap away and be like, all right, now this is close. Like it gets me to this point. So you could say like, hey, I'm a big Buffalo Bills fan, Bills Mafia. All right, so I'm going to start having some content around creating analogies between selling products and your favorite sport, because we can deliver that point of view, that contrast as well. So it's been pretty fun in that journey.
Really intriguing. So Marie, and I want you to keep going, but Marie, Laura, any comments on the training aspect? Have you been? And I started doing this because I heard about this from Tristan. But any comments, Marie? Any comments on you on the training side?
I admit that I have been playing like a dilettante. I keep bouncing around trying different things, and it's that training that I need to practice doing, because that was a sticking point for me in Jasper. I couldn't make it. I couldn't tell it what I couldn't make it do what I wanted it to do.
Yeah.
But ChatGPT, this is exciting because it sounds like I could work with ChatGPT more to get it to do that.
Yeah, and it was just a spreadsheet. So I mentioned that David before everyone earlier on the call when we first got on. I'm working with an insurance agency, and they have 10 different people that are going to be on this, and each of them are talking differently and sell differently. So I can even take how they transcription on how they talk. I can use it to train the AI to start writing like they sound and how they speak. Right. So even then, the stylistically, all this other stuff too. And then eventually, like, it's pretty much like someone has their own personalized Jarvis.
So here's the skinny. Are you looking at passing the Turing test there? We're going to get into that before we end.
We'll see what happens.
So this is a great question tied to Tristan, Laura, and Marie, when you mentioned trained AI, is there any filter to stop getting trained with incorrect data? In other words, will it be intelligent enough to filter bad data? This is interesting. This is my issue with AI. You can trick it with bad data. Can you teach it to know what bad data is?
So ChatGPT is trained on Common Crawl, so a common crawl of the internet, which is why, it's crawling Reddit. It's crawling essentially not the best sources of information, along with really great sources of information. So you can't control what ChatGPT has been trained on in terms of the data set that it's pulling from. When we talk about training it, we're talking about what output we want back in terms of like the parameters around the writing style or the tone of voice. But you
can't say don't give me Reddit data because it's all bad. Can you say that?
I don't think so.
Yeah, you can't seem to eliminate the source of information, because I've tried to work on that too. But that's where something like the work that elicit.org is doing is, I think, ultimately going to help that, because what they're doing is having it read scientific journal articles, understand what's going on, summarize it, figure out when the data, how to tell that the data, even in a scientific article, is better or is more or less credible, because you have to do that, right?
Yeah.
And so that's part of what they're trying to train the models for.
Oh, so which tool is that again?
That is Elicit, ELICIT.
Okay, that's a good one for that person who asked the question, because that's what they're asking about. Is really, if I could see. So basically, what we're saying now, and Tristan, you want to keep talking too, because we got a little bit more time for you. Is we're talking about the idea that I see this data stinks. Don't go after this data anymore. And what we're saying as a group is that's not possible yet. What is possible is to work with a tool that's doing a better job in what data they're pulling from. Correct?
I think so.
All right, Tristan, finish up. Any final thoughts on your side?
I was going to say, just kind of tie into like what everyone's been talking about too, is like, how does this integrate into business? Is that for me, I was using spreadsheets to do things. A lot of people are using Excel spreadsheets to perform tasks over and over again. They have someone going in there. You start thinking, how can I view ChatGPT to help simplify this entire process? How can I use AI to work within my existing business and my system? Instead of trying to pull AI in and force it in, there's certain things that can augment already. So you got these patterns and frameworks, and realize you can train it and set it up to integrate with your business versus like, how do I just force this thing on? So that for me was an exciting function. Like, who knew spreadsheets could be exciting? But for me, they were. And it was because I started.
Well, the repeat and scale business, you're a repeat and scale business. In the repeat and scale business, if you could speed that up with quality.
Yeah. I mean, if you're doing like cold outreach, so then you'd become, again, kind of also did like the expert eye. How do you avoid mistakes? Like the expert eye at the end of the day needs to be there. So if I can get to this point, I can train this tool and get to this point, then I just have to make a couple of tweaks and changes. And I can actually do a lot more volume, deliver better results for clients, and manage clients at a higher level.
So Laura and I'll give you the last example, then we'll go to questions. So Laura and I have been doing a lot of LinkedIn Lives, and some of you folks have probably seen some of them. So we decided to do a 10 LinkedIn Live series. So for me, as a horrible writer who can't spell themselves out of a paper bag, I had to look at trying to write 10 descriptions. That would probably normally take me 8 hours. 8 hours of review, cleanup, edit. I did that in 45 minutes. 45 minutes, I was able to pop out 10 descriptions, adjusting the voice, training the system, cleaning it up a little bit. So there is, Tristan, as you're talking about, there's some real power here, because ultimate description is important, but they want to hear me talk, right? If they come, they want to hear me talk, right? Hopefully. So basically, that's the real value. So let's jump into questions. First question is, which AI can I use in a secondary school English language class? And folks, questions, throw them at us. Thoughts, anyone?
I'd use, honestly, this for the secondary school English language class, I would start just by using Grammarly. In part, it does have, I mean, it's a relatively simple AI, right? But it is good at parsing the language. It depends on what you want to do with it, right? Or do you want to, are you teaching the class or are you learning in the class? And if you're teaching the class, you can use it to make a syllabus. You can use it to write learning objectives. You can use it to make an essay and have your students analyze that essay and tell you where the AI messed up. All of those things are ways you could use it.
Okay. Any comments on Laura and or Tristan's side before we jump to another question?
I would agree with the Grammarly aspect. I use that as well too, to help simplify time, just another set of eyes on it as well. And especially if you're learning English, it's a great way to understand the different ways you can write it, passive, active voice, things like that. So it's powerful in that sense.
All right, Jeff, you're out there. You probably have a question. You've been using the system, so please don't hesitate to throw one at us. But Laura, I'll start with you on this one because I think this is a passion side for you. Is it true that ChatGPT has difficulty with bias in its content?
Well, it has the bias that is built into the data sets that it was trained on. So, and that's the case with any AI, it's trained on data sets that have the bias, the unconscious bias of whomever provided that data or created that data. So the answer is, the question was, how does it avoid, or how about this? And how does ChatGPT avoid bias? And also, is it true that ChatGPT has a difficulty with bias in its content? It's something that the user, meaning us as the user of this tool, has to be aware of and filtering for and adjusting for before we present any kind of text that it's going to give us. So that's our job as humans, to notice that bias. And that's not, I mean, so if we have unconscious bias, that's not possible, right? So we have to, that's like our own personal journey of uncovering what our biases are so that we can be responsible users of this technology.
So this AI where we're talking about supervised AI. It's not unsupervised, which means unsupervised AI just goes on. Nobody looks at the output. When we're using these tools, we have to supervise it, meaning we have to look at it, process it, and then pull things out and adjust accordingly, right? And that is a term that people use in the AI world, supervised versus unsupervised. So here's a question. Is there any training to write prompt properly in order to get the most out of AI and ChatGPT?
There's some great free trainings. If you go to Udemy, there's several free ChatGPT courses, or you could just Google that and you'll find some good tutorials and YouTube videos and courses on how to get started with it.
All right. We have a last question here. And for students, those who might be lazy, how does these AI tools especially can impact their work their will to work and learn? So we got lazy students. Does it help them and ultimately maybe fire up the learning process better? What do you think, Marie?
I would like it to. I think lazy students are, they'll work. Sometimes lazy students will work very hard to hack the system. Yep. And so this is a
they're efficiency experts, right?
Learn from it.
They're efficiency experts. Lazy people can be really good efficiency experts.
Yes. And so, I think it also helps students who aren't really lazy, but maybe neurodivergent or may have other issues that get them labeled lazy. And in those ways, I think that those AI tools can help a lot. And again, Grammarly helps those of us who didn't, the folks who didn't learn the rules the way I did when I was in the dark ages, it's much easier to have Grammarly come behind you and say, that's passive voice. Try writing in an active voice. This is how you do that. So yeah, I think you can learn from the AI, and it can help.
So we'll finish up here. The Turing test is, can a human see that it's actually something besides a human responding back to it? And there's been some discussion on certain levels of the AI that's out there right now that it does pass the Turing test. Any thoughts from anyone? Tristan, Laura, Marie?
Based
What
on
do you
those,
think?
based on those definitions, I would say yes, especially when you have like GPT-4 come out as well. Like if you're going to be emulating, I have some opinions on this, but if you're emulating human emotions and you have something that's been trained on all the data sets of the best literature, film, scripts ever written, it's going to be pretty good at dialing into human emotions. And we already have screenwriters that are capable of doing that visually, but also with words already. So if I can have a data set trained on that, understanding how to pull insights and restructure those frameworks, I'm pretty sure I can convince someone of a lot of different things. So that's my opinion on it.
All right. It's something that we can talk about in another session. Any thoughts, Marie or Laura, on your side with that?
I just want the users to be ethical about it. I think that's my...
Yeah, but have we always proven to be ethical about things? Technology seems to override our ability to understand how the police regulate and use it properly, but we'll talk about that in another session. At this point, thank you all for participating. This has been a phenomenal experience. We are going to jump over to the other chat room for those who want to chat it up to continue the conversation. With that said, Tristan, Laura, Marie, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, folks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.